Scott, your clock stopped working. That was a very temporary fix, amen. I will not be long this morning, I promise. Thank you for your attentiveness. Thank you for being here today. It's a good day to be in God's house. And we do have music on the back table out there in the foyer if you'd like to take advantage of that. My daughter Christiana will be back there afterwards. And we found out this morning there's another Christiana in the church. That's pretty awesome. You don't hear that name too often. And she was named after Christiana from Pilgrim's Progress. If you've never read that book, you should read that. That should be on your bucket list as a Christian. Pilgrim's Progress. And one of the main characters there, Christian, his wife's name is Christiana. We loved that years ago and gave that name to her. And I also used to sell old and rare Christian books for a living. That was wonderful. I did that for several years, 10 years, and I named it Christiana's Bookshelf. And so we loved that name. It was interesting and wonderful to find out there was one here today in church. But if you'd like to take advantage of the music, Christiana will be back there afterwards, and she can help you with that. The song you heard this morning, Soldier On, is new. We have a brand new album coming out in just, oh boy, about 11 days it'll be out. 10 days or so it'll be out in hand. And it's called Soldier On. That was the title song. And we're going to sing a lot more from that album tonight. And so I want to encourage you to come back. There's no Super Bowl or anything that's important like that. Just come back to church and be in God's house, be where you're supposed to be. And we're going to sing essentially a mini concert tonight. So you're going to want to be here. And we'll sing a bunch of songs from Soldier On, our brand new album. If you'd like to take advantage of getting that, Christiana will have a paper in the back. We're taking pre-orders. Like I say, I think I'll have it in hand around the 28th or the 1st or so around then. But we can mail it to you at that point. We'll pay for the shipping. You just pay up front, and Abigail will sign the CD for you. All the pre-orders are signed, so that'll be there in the back if you'd like. Uh, Matthew chapter number 10. Our son, Daniel, he's not here with us today. He is a member, or a student rather, at Pensacola Christian College. And you can't miss him because he's 6'11", so he's the tallest kid on campus. But he's a freshman this year. He's 20 years old. He started just a few weeks ago, about a month ago, and he's trying to get assimilated. And he's going through the period, we talked about it ahead of time, several times, that he was going to go through a period of loneliness and, that kind of thing. And that's to be expected when you're new to college, trying to, get grounded and learn your class schedule, and you're meeting new people. There are 6,000 students on campus there, so it's a big school, relatively speaking. And so he's very outgoing. He'll be fine. One thing he didn't anticipate, and I want to be careful what I say here because we appreciate Pensacola Christian College. This is not an advertisement. They didn't ask me to say these things, okay? But our son's going there, and we would not send him there if we didn't feel that it was safe for him to be there. But we love the school. We bought into what they're doing. It's not perfect, just like this church isn't perfect. It's like our family's not perfect. It's like they're not perfect. And every church we're in is not perfect because there are people there. It has its issues. And one thing that Daniel found out pretty quickly was that his roommates were not exactly of the godly sort, even though they are at a Christian college. As a matter of fact, they're quite reprobate and rough. And so that was wearing on him because we have certain standards in our home. Just to help you in your mind, um, if you're wondering how the college handles that, they come down on that kind of thing. Movies, inappropriate language, things of music, you're listening to secular music there in the dorm room. That's frowned upon in the school. As a matter of fact, I met with two different um, executives, if you will, people in authority there about the issue, and they assured me that it's something that they will take care of. He's met. So the school is on board with Christian standards, with students walking with Christ, but there's probably a good portion of the student body that's not converted. It's just the way it is. You can't clean a fish till you catch it, amen? So I'm sure that well-meaning parents, you can understand how they would do this. They look at Pensacola Christian College as a clean environment. They don't want their son or daughter going to a secular university and getting completely reprobate. And so they send them to Pensacola Christian College. The problem is they're not saved. And so Daniel has struggled with this, being in a room with two other guys that really don't walk the walk. They don't live it. One of them is actually his assistant prayer leader. But he doesn't tear these guys down. And I told someone recently in the college, I said, my goal is not to get them kicked out of the school. I'd like to see them saved and revived. That's my goal. I'd like to see them walk with Christ. But Daniel's struggling with that. And so I was just trying to meditate on that for him. How can I help him in this area? Because this is something he's going to have to do. He's going to have to work through in his Christian life. And I mentioned last hour that I often wake up in the middle of the night and I'll study my Bible. Well, back at the beginning of 2013, I committed to reading my Bible every day. Now, I know that's astonishing for an evangelist. He should be doing that, right? But the fact is, there were times when I didn't read it every day. I intended to, but just got busy. Things of life got in the way, and I didn't read it every day. So I was convicted at the end of 2012 in 13, read it every day. And by God's grace, I missed just one day in 2013. And since that day, I have not missed reading my Bible a single day to this day. And so, now, I'm not asking for a pat on the back for that, because I'm a Christian. Okay, a Christian ought to read his Bible or her Bible every day. It's just, it's like patting a soldier on the back for taking their weapon to the battlefield every day. Well, no, that's what a soldier does, okay? And so, I said all that to say this. As I've begun to read my Bible now, words and phrases jump off the page that never used to jump off the page when I wasn't reading it consistently every day. I've read the Bible every day for years now. I haven't missed a day for years. Since December 10th, 2013 was one day I missed. And so, the Bible's come alive to me. Come alive to you if you do that as well. Well, the other night, a few weeks ago, I was laying there, I was reading my Bible, thinking about Daniel's situation and where he's at. And I was in Matthew chapter 10 in my own quiet time. And I read the verse I'm going to show to you now, and it jumped right off the page. These words jumped off the page at me. Look at verse 25. In verse 25, Jesus is speaking. He says, "It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his household?" And that first phrase is enough for the disciple to be as his master and the servant as his Lord. Boy, that jumped right off the page at me at wee hours of the morning. And I thought to myself, that is the answer for Daniel right there. You're in an environment, Daniel, that you're not used to being in. He was in the shelter of our bus traveling. And let me be clear, we don't isolate our children from the realities of the world. We protect them, we insulate them. But we don't isolate them. They're not ignorant of the evils that are in the world. We teach them to live their Christian life out in spite of the evils of the world. So Daniel wasn't so sheltered that he didn't understand what he was getting into. And we didn't go there with our expectations unreasonable. But he's in an environment right now that's very challenging. And here's the answer for him. And this is what I wrote of that morning in a text. I said, Daniel, it's enough for you to be like Jesus at Pensacola Christian College. And if it's you and him alone, then it's you and him alone, and you're not alone, and that'll be perfectly fine. You're going to be okay. Because Jesus said here that if they call the master Beelzebub, what do you think they're going to do to his followers? Now, I'm not trying to be overly political right now at all, so don't take it that way. But is not the world the loudest part of it? I wouldn't say the majority, but a very loud part of it, calling our current president basically a devil. Every day, at every opportunity that they have to get in front of a microphone, they're calling him a devil. What are they calling his followers? We're a basket of deplorables. We're anybody that's conservative in nature, that we're hated. So nothing's changed. What I want to do this morning for a few minutes is challenge you to be like Jesus. Now, when you say that, some people might think, well, you want to challenge us to be compassionate or forgiving or loving or any of the things that describe Christ, meekness. We could go down that road. I'm not talking about that this morning. I'm talking about in relation to being persecuted for your faith. Because if you're going to live as a Christian, you will be persecuted. Hold your finger there in Matthew chapter 10 and go over to 1 Peter chapter 4. We'll go back to Matthew chapter 10, so you don't want to lose that spot. But 1 Peter chapter 4. Look what Peter says here, starting in verse 12. He says, "Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. But rejoice, inasmuch as ye are partakers of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory shall be revealed, ye may be glad also with exceeding joy. If ye be reproached for the name of Christ, happy are ye. You know, when it happens, it doesn't feel too happy. You ever been reproached for the name of Christ? I have.
Yeah.
It's kind of a ministry of mine. It's developed into that over the last 20 plus years of engaging atheists. Can I tell you, I've been reproached for Christ a few times. It sometimes doesn't feel too happy. But Peter said, you are happy in reality. Happy are ye, for the Spirit of glory and of God resteth upon you. On their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified. And so I want to challenge you this morning to be like Jesus. Now, if you were to look today at who Jesus was, he's considered by many to be the greatest man who ever lived. If you went on to Google and typed in, who's the greatest man who ever lived? It would bounce between, 3 or 4 names. It would say Jesus would be there. In some polls, he'd be the number one person who ever existed in history, the greatest person who ever existed in history. Another name you would see would be Muhammad. He's right up there with Jesus, although he is absolutely not one of the greatest people in history. Maybe as far as influence, if that's the measuring stick, then yes, he's influenced billions of people, and so then he would be up there in that regard. But as far as being a good man, a godly man, he was not that at all. Study Islam and you'll find out the doctrines of Islam. You might see Martin Luther. They might talk about Martin Luther, the reformer, being one of the great men, or Gandhi being one of the great men. But for the most part, it's Jesus Christ is considered the greatest man who ever existed. Well, how wonderful then is it for us to be associated with the greatest man that ever existed? Shouldn't that, if that praise is heaped upon him, shouldn't that be heaped upon those of us that are his followers?
Amen. Amen.
It doesn't work that way, does it? It doesn't work that way. And it certainly did not work that way in Jesus' day. Jesus was called names. They called him Beelzebub. Now, if you did a little research into that, you would find out that basically what the Jewish leadership was saying to Jesus was about the worst thing they could ever repeat to another Jewish person. They called him the Prince of Devils. They reproached him in such a way that they couldn't outdo themselves. It was the worst insult they could find, and that's what they heaped upon Christ. They certainly didn't regard him as the greatest man who ever lived. Boy, I was blessed by that offertory this morning, Pastor. It was beautiful. But I was meditating on it, thinking about how many songs have been written about Christ, and how many sermons and lectures have been preached, and how many books have been written. Certainly more than any other historical person who has ever existed. And yet, when he was alive, they called him names. They mocked him. Beelzebub. You're Beelzebub. You're the offscouring of the world. You're the prince of devils. That's a strong accusation. Was Christ misunderstood? Sure was. Completely misunderstood. Do you think you'll be misunderstood if you decide to follow Christ? Yes, you will. Even amongst those who call themselves Christians? Absolutely. Absolutely. I spend a lot of time on social media. I kind of see it as a ministry. I try to challenge people to think. What we're lacking in the church today are thinking people. Can I tell you that? That's a problem. That's an epidemic. We need thinkers. One independent Baptist writer several years ago wrote a great article on the need to go back to thinking. And he said one of the reasons that Christians ruled early America is because we outthought everybody else. That's true. Jonathan Edwards was one of our greatest theologians, and he's called America's greatest thinker. We had the Puritans, of brilliant minds. But Christians don't think anymore. We just react, and we live on our emotions, and everything's by experience. We're not thinking people anymore. We need to be thinking people. But when you challenge people to think, you have a tendency to go outside the box. Think outside the box. Or you go outside the paradigm that everyone's used to working in. And guess what happens? You will be called out, and you'll be misunderstood. Every revolutionary has had that happen to them, every one of them. I'm not seeking to be a revolutionary or a maverick or anything. I just want to get people to think. But when you do that, you're marked. Well, you're a follower of Christ? You're amongst followers of Christ? Yep, but it happens. accused. Do you think you'll ever be falsely accused? You sure will. And by the way, as I'm reading this list of things that happened to Jesus, if this has never happened to you, I'm not saying you're not saved, but you might want to look into that and even ask yourself, am I living the Christian life as I ought? Because you should not be a friend of the world. They should not just accept you as you are at face value, because the Christian life is contrary to their worldview. Falsely accused. He was lonely. In Matthew 26, when he was in the garden, you remember he went there with the disciples. The Bible says his soul was exceeding sorrowful. Not just sorrowful, exceeding sorrowful. And he wanted his disciples, those closest to him, to just watch for an hour. Just hold me up in prayer, because I'm going through the most difficult time in my life. And he went and prayed, and he came back. What did he find? Sleeping. What? Couldn't you watch 1 hour? No doubt some of them said, oh, sorry. Went back and prayed. Fell asleep again. 3 times. Loneliness. That's what my son's going through right now. Loneliness. It's bad enough to go through the normal loneliness you find just trying to meet new people, but he also has the element that's evil, and he's not a part of it. Not a part of it. Well, you're never alone if you're walking with Jesus.
Amen.
You're not alone. You have the Lord. And it is enough, our text says, that the disciple be as his master and the servant as his Lord. In other words, we should be content to be like Jesus. And if he got rejected, we're going to get rejected, and it's enough. It's okay. That's what that's saying. It's okay that we be like that. That's how this world is. It's no friend of God. We need to learn to walk, pick up our bootstraps and walk as a Christian, and alone if we need to with our Lord. Cling to him. He may be your only friend, and that's okay. It's enough that you be like that. He was lonely. He was persecuted for his beliefs, as my son is finding out he will be. And I told him, I said, there's going to come a time, Daniel. I said, right now you live your Christian life as you should. You don't engage in the evil, and remain humble. You don't want to come across as holier than thou or a Pharisee, although he'll probably get accused of that even if he isn't trying to be that way. I said, remain humble, but there's going to come a day when you are going to have to verbally stand and say no, and you're going to have to verbally say no and stand for your Christian faith. Because they're going to compel you to do something. If sinners entice thee, consent thou not. And you're going to have to take a stand, and you're going to be persecuted for it. And if you walk with the Lord in this world, and you take a stand for Christ, you will be persecuted. Peter said, don't be surprised at the fiery trial. Don't be shocked by that. It's normal for the Christian. It's expected. Expected. He was an outcast. So much for being the greatest man who ever lived. That happened down the road. You mean he got glorified down the road? He got looked upon in a better light down the road? He sure did, but not when he lived. That might be your lot as well. That might be your lot as well. In verse 36, look what it says. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He was an outcast. He had no honor in his own house. We're talking about the Son of God here. What will happen to you? My family cast me off years ago, and my dad's still not a Christian. When I got saved, I was excited about being born again, and living this. Everything was new to me. My whole life was transformed, and I had this new outlook, and I was excited to tell someone, so I wrote my dad a letter. Told him how excited I was. I thought for sure he'd just think that was great. He didn't. He didn't. As a matter of fact, for 2 years he didn't speak to me after that letter. 2 years I didn't talk to my dad because he was offended by my letter. Maybe I was overzealous and I was just excited about the things of God. Wanted him to be excited about it too. He wasn't saved, he still isn't. Our relationship's much better now. But you'll suffer persecution from your own family if you live with the Lord. Finally, he was hated and he was murdered. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to any one of you here. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it could. Persecution could come. Here's what I'm seeing in our country that scares me. For the last 8 years, a certain mindset or worldview, liberal worldview, we call it that, that's what we call it, reigned. Okay, and so they were the ones on top of the hill. That's switched now. It's the conservatives that are on top of the hill. But here's the danger. If you are on top of the hill without the right moral guidebook, it's just going to be oppression from another viewpoint. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Recently, I believe it was in Berkeley, they were going, some conservative commentator, some guy, I don't even know, he was kind of this, I looked him up, he's kind of weird. But he was going to be out there, and he's on the conservative side, he's very caustic. I didn't know anything about him. He's got a filthy, filthy mouth. He cross-dresses. He's weird. But he's very hard on the liberals, and he blasts them. And I thought, is this what we are now? That's no better than what it was, to be quite honest with you. Because we're not standing on a firm foundation. It's just going to be survival of the fittest now from the right side. Well, that's going to bring its own measure of persecution, I promise you. Because what they're saying is, we don't want what you have as Christians. You just happen to be in our camp. Thank you for your vote. We're going to rule it like a dictator from our own side now. Persecution is probably coming still for those of us that want to walk with Christ. Make no mistake about it. America is not a Christian nation now all of a sudden again as of January. Not even close. Not even close. I remember a statement being made during the election that of all the elections that have ever taken place in American history, this past one had the least amount of references to God in it. He wasn't really important on either side. Mentioned because our group, our circles, made a point of bringing him up. But if it wasn't for us, God's really not important. The Bible's not important. That ought to alarm you and ought to help you know how to pray for our leaders. Jesus was finally done away with. We've had enough of this man. He may say the same for us. Are you willing to face that for Christ? It is enough, it says there, for the disciple that he be as his master and the servant as his Lord. It's enough. It's okay. Because here's the last thing I noted about Christ. He was right. He was right. The pursuit of truth, and the obtaining of it is worth all the trials. Because it's truth. If you don't walk in truth, you're walking in a lie. You're walking in ignorance. Go to 2 John. 2 John, way in the back of your Bible near Jude, or Jude. Look what it says here about walking in truth. Here's what John said to this elect lady, as he called her. 2 John verse 4. He says, I rejoiced greatly that I found of thy children walking in truth. You see that? John was excited that this woman's children were walking in the truth. And I look at it as like walking outside in that sunshine. The sunshine is truth, and they walked in it. And John was excited about that. That's what we're supposed to do. Seek truth, pursue after it, obtain it, and walk in it. That's our job as Christians. But there's a price to pay for that. But shouldn't we want to live in the truth even if there's a price? Why live a lie? That makes no sense. We should be going hard after truth, no matter the cost, because it's true. Truth is truth. So our job as followers is to do two things here. Go back to Matthew 10. Two things. One, because we have the truth, we're to tell others about it and about Him without fear. Look in verse 27, Matthew 10, look at verse 27. Look what Jesus tells them. So he says it's enough to be the disciple be as his master and the servant his Lord. They've called me Beelzebub. They're going to call you names. They're going to mock you. Don't be afraid of them. In 26 he says. And then 27 he says this. What I tell you in darkness, that speak ye in light, and what ye hear in the ear, that preach ye upon the housetops. You're going to be persecuted for your faith. That's just a fact. It's okay. Get it settled in your mind. And now, when you're in your quiet time with me, the things I tell you, you go out there and preach them and speak them anyway. You're going to pay a price for it, but get out there and do it. That's what he told them, didn't he? That's our job. Go tell this lost world that they are living in iniquity and sin and rebellion against a holy God, and that they're in danger of hellfire. Now you can say it with tact. We should be able to speak with gentleness unto all men, as the Bible tells us to be. We don't have to be in someone's face and mean and rude and judgmental and condemning with a big bony finger in their face. You probably didn't receive the gospel that way yourself. But we certainly have an obligation to tell our fellow man the truth.
Amen.
How can we not? As a matter of fact, I'll submit unto you that it is absolutely a measuring stick of salvation. If you have no desire, be honest with yourself, if you have no desire to tell other people what has happened to you, and tell them about the truth, the gospel message, the truth in Christ, you better check and see if you're saved. Imagine if you had cancer, and you found a doctor who healed you. You really were healed of cancer. Wouldn't you want to tell everybody that had cancer the doctor's name? Wouldn't you want to tell them about this doctor who could heal them? How mean would it be for you as a human being to keep that quiet? Well, man is infected with a sin cancer. All of us have it when we're born. We have a sin cancer, and we have found the cure.
Amen.
We are obligated, out of love to our fellow man, to go tell them of the doctor who can fix them with the gospel. That's the only pill that works.
Gospel. I like that.
We're obligated. Jesus says, what I tell you in the darkness, what I whisper in your ear, go out there and tell them. And you're going to be persecuted when you do. Just be prepared for it. It's okay. It's enough. You be like me. You're going to be all right. Hey, that's a great promise. Don't be afraid to share your Christian faith. If you were to spend time studying all the worldviews that exist out there, there are only basically 5, by the way. None of them answers the big questions of life like Christianity. None of them. None of them. They just don't have answers. They're just ignorant. They're blind leading the blind. Walk up to them with light and say, can I show you some light? Well, I might get rejected. That's okay. It's enough to be like your master. You're following his command. So tell others about him without fear. And then in verse 31, look what it tells us. Well, let's start reading in verse 29. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing? And one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Some of us are getting less numbers as the years pass. Unfortunately. Look what it says here. Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. So it's enough to be like me. You're going to be persecuted. I want you to go proclaim my message. And rest in this truth, that you are very valuable to God. You're of more value than any other part of the creation. The very hairs of your head are all numbered. Why would God care about that? Because he cares about you. Do my bidding. Go on out and do it. After he tells us that our foes will be those of our own household, in verse 37 he warns us. He says that he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. He's not saying you shouldn't love your children or your parents. He's saying nothing should be above loving him and obeying him. And then look what he says in verse 39 as he wraps this up. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. You have to lose it. Wow. The pursuit and propagation of truth is worth everything the world can hurl at us. For in pursuing the truth we find him, and in finding him we find life, and not just life or any life, but life eternal. That's worth anything that we can face in this world.
Amen.
Amen.
We find him, the Creator, the one who pursue after the truth. What do we care what they have? Our fellow fallen creatures, why do we care what they have to say? I can find Him. And the benefit of that is He grants me eternal life. That's just icing on the cake. The best part is I can have a renewed relationship with my God. That's what salvation is. Heaven's just a side benefit. I didn't get saved to go to heaven. I got saved to get rid of my misery and my sin and to be reconciled to an offended God. That's why I got saved.
Amen.
That's wonderful. And then very quietly, Jesus sets the example. Look at the next chapter, verse 1. No fanfare. Look what it says. It came to pass when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. See that? Just like it said in verse 27. Whatever I tell you, speak ye. Whatever I tell you, preach ye. He departed to teach and to preach in their cities. So he gives them classroom instruction. You're going to be persecuted. Go preach my message and